Well, today is a lovely day, and I'm very excited to be here on Stories Worth Telling. And today I have Helga Mann as my guest. And Helga tells amazing, incredible stories, and she has written several books that she has brought with her to the studio. And Helga, we have a lot of information and history to cover, and you know I love helping people tell their story, and that's why I am passionate about getting your word out and helping you to share your word. The first thing that I've looked at is called the Little Read Book. And
Little Red Book.
Oh,
Little Red. Because
oh,
it's
like
Little Red.
Oh, it's Little Red.
Yeah,
like
it's a takeoff on Chairman Mao.
Of course, yeah. So this is your Little Red Book.
That's my manifesto.
This is your manifesto, and I just opened it up to page 9, I guess it is, and it talks about the ambush. Is that too painful for you to talk about?
Well, I can talk about it.
I don't want to dredge up
it
any.
It haunted me at night. I've been in therapy for it since 3rd grade.
I'm sorry. This was something that happened to you as
1st grade.
1st grade, and
about 6 weeks in.
Six weeks into 1st grade. Did you go to kindergarten?
No.
No. So you didn't even. This was your first school
My
experience.
first experience of school. Well, the first day of school, I pushed the school bully off the swing.
Oh dear.
Because I was on the swing first.
Oh.
And he was 3 times my size. Well, he pushed me off the swing into the dirt, so I pushed him off the swing. And I sat back down on the swing. Well, he hauled off and broke my nose.
Ooh. Where was this, if I might ask?
This was in Western Pennsylvania, Sardis
Okay.
Elementary School.
Okay.
And place now is called the Principality of Murraysville.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry you had that
And,
experience.
well,
did you tell the teacher? I mean, what happened? Did you?
I didn't dare. I was sworn to secrecy by my grandmother.
She said, "Don't."
She said, never mention anything about my girlish ways to anybody ever.
Okay. Okay.
So I lied to therapists for my entire life.
Okay.
And here I was, basically for all intents and purposes, the school queer, in a place where that was instant summary death sentence, just for being different.
Well, it's a cautionary tale, I think. It tells us so much about how things were. How many, if you don't mind telling me, like what year would this have been?
This was 1952.
Okay, so about
Senator Joseph McCarthy was yelling and screaming about commie pinkos and the other bad word meaning homosexuals. And I walked like a girl.
So here you are, a little boy at the time, little boy.
That was the game I was trying to play anyway.
Right, right.
I mean, I was unfortunate enough to be born with the wrong ship between my legs.
Right, right.
And there's a lot of us out there. There's probably 4 million of us floating around the country. And about 1.2 of us are out. And I've been harboring throwaway gays and throwaway transgender kids since I moved out of the house.
So can we go back a little bit in your story, and is it okay to do it chronologically, or should we just pop around?
Chronologically probably be best.
Okay, okay. So here you are in 1st grade, your first school experience. Your grandmother said, "Don't tell anybody." So basically, you had to play a hide game, a shell game, right? So then what happened?
Well,
if your nose got broken, you told that you had to go to
the school nurse patched it up. Everybody saw it happen. But then I developed a reputation where nobody dare face me alone.
Because you were strong. You were probably...
I was the 3rd smallest kid in my class.
So you were small, but able
feisty.
Feisty. That's a good word. Able to defend yourself.
Able to defend myself.
Okay.
I mean, my mother pushed out 4 kids in 6 years.
Right.
She was always busy with the baby. She didn't even notice I was living as a girl, even though when she was pregnant with me, she made all girls' clothes. Well, during World War II, she was wanting, my dad was in Hawaii during World War II. He was the company commander of Charlie Company, 86th Coast Artillery, based at Ford Field in Hawaii, on Oahu, right off of Pearl Harbor.
It's beautiful there.
His unit cleaned up after Pearl Harbor.
That was a big
and then
job.
Went around the Pacific cleaning up all the minefields and unexploded ordnance that was found in any kind of operation. He lost 1,200 plus guys in almost 4 years.
So he had a pretty...
He had to send the letters home. It broke him.
Oh, that's pretty horrific experience.
And then he came home from the Army and found that his engineering degree that he'd signed up to ROTC to finance was obsolete.
What happened there?
The war effort. The war effort made everything he'd learned in college pretty much obsolete. So here he was, he had to go back to work in the mill because he had a family to support, and their plan was 7 kids.
But only 4.
Well, I had an older brother. I have an older brother.
Okay, where did you come in?
Are
you
I'm number 2.
Okay.
I was born 9 months, 22 days from the time my dad stepped off the C-50, the C-54 at Allegheny, old Allegheny Airport in Pittsburgh. And every 18 months, my mother pushed out another baby.
How many were there of you total?
There's 5 of us.
Okay, so 5
The doctor
babies.
said after my brother Bob, "Ain't no way, no more. You're getting too old."
Well, her body must have been tired at that point.
Yeah,
That's a lot of babies.
she's a strong woman.
Yeah, yeah.
In this book here,
Okay.
is the most amazing love story you'll ever read.
Oh, was it your
It's
mom
the-
and dad? Oh, very sweet.
Those 2 adored each other to the very end.
No, that's great.
It was, and they adored us kids. I mean, they yelled and screamed at us occasionally, and we occasionally got the Board of Education to the seat of the pants, but very, very seldom. It had to be a civil insurrection before they'd take that kind of drastic action. And but we got along well with each other. I didn't get along well with the outside world because I was too different.
So you have an older brother, you, and then you
A
said,
sister, and then 2 other brothers.
Okay, so you were, okay.
My grandmother swore me to secret. My mother was in the hospital pushing out the youngest brother. This was in 1952. I had 5 months to learn basically boy mannerisms and activities. I'm a fast study.
So who taught you?
My older brother. He took me by the hand and worked with me. But he had his own social life.
Of course.
So when I got jumped in the playground, he was already in fear because he was having troubles fitting in himself, and he was normal. He was having trouble fitting. We didn't have the local accent.
Where did you move there from?
I actually moved there from Pittsburgh, but we didn't. My parents were educated. The average level of education, the people that we got dropped in with, was somewhere around 8th grade.
Sure.
The adults left 8th grade and went to work in the mines or in the fields or in the mills, and because that's what they did. That was custom and tradition. And
What mill was there? Was it
U.S. Steel.
steel mill?
There
of
was the
course.
whole valley.
Right.
The whole Monongahela Valley was full of steel mills.
Okay.
And and then it was country. In fact, when we first moved in, my first memories looking out the window, there were 2 lights you could see at night.
And that was the factory?
There was Thompson's down in the hollow, and then there was Marshall's over across the hollow. And then if the leaves were down, you could see Gordon's. And then they developed the area.
So what were those 3 things? Thompson, Gordon?
Thompsons were one family. There was
Oh.
the Thompson family. They built a house up on top of the hill later on. Then there was Fred Marshall and his brood, which lived across the valley. My dad hung out with him. And he had 5 daughters. And but I didn't have any social life at all as a little kid because I had to cross the road to visit the Marshalls. And so I had basically farm animals for playmates. We had 3 goats, a couple of cats, a mess of chickens, and a collie.
Big collie. They're nice dogs.
Yeah, we went through a lot of collies. Yeah, because they wear out.
They don't live that long.
Well, they were working dogs. They were always working dogs.
So you had kind of a farmstead?
Yeah,
is
we had
that
a
it?
farm. We had a working farm stand. We ran into a little problem with the Klan because most of our customers were minorities. Because my dad was a white spot on a black dog. Didn't bother him any, and we really loved the customers. They were really nice people.
What did you sell?
Produce, chickens, ducks, rabbits, You know,
Eggs.
Eggs, honey.
Oh, nice.
We had bees, and jam, jelly, fruit. We had an orchard, and we also had a woodlot in the back.
So your mom did all that? She did all that canning, put up all those fruits and vegetables, and
Yeah. As soon as we were able to help around the kitchen, we got pressed into services, like chief cook and bottle wash, or vegetable slicer, vegetable. Like I learned how to wield a French knife when I was 6 years old for slicing pickles.
well, I'm one of 9 children. I was number 8 in my family, so my mom had 11 pregnancies in 9 years, so she had 2 miscarriages. So kind of a similar story back in the days.
Yeah, we're organically raised. My dad was a pioneer in organic farming. Any kind of used vegetable matter and the chicken manure and stuff like. When he bought the place, it was red clay. Yeah.
So he enriched the
He
soil.
enriched the soil with chicken manure
Sure.
and composted chicken manure, compost out of the weeds that we chopped out. Any kind of organic matter we could put our hands on, I went into there along with blast furnace slag to break up the clay. Triaxle after triaxle after triaxle of blast furnace slag to soften the clay.
Well, if you garden here or do yard work here, you find lots of rocks. They call them New England potatoes, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with them. You know, it's funny. My property in Glastonbury, I went down over 10 feet. Didn't find anything bigger than a potato because I'm on an alluvial bluff overlooking the North Fork of Salmon Brook. And I dug a foundation for a stairway on my barn, and I never found anything bigger than a potato. Dug it by hand.
Well, good for you. Build strong bodies doing that kind of work.
Yeah, well,
Okay, so first grade, you had this bullying experience, and then was it a 1 through?
it was continuous.
Okay, it wasn't
It
just.
was continuous. I was seriously considering ending it at 10 because it was to the point where I just couldn't face another year in that school. The summer, just after I turned 10, we had a tree house. The floor of the tree house was 55 feet off the ground because we used a 100-foot rope to haul the stuff up there. And I went to the roof of the tree house with the idea of jumping off. And then I came to the realization, I saw what happened to the Shaw family when Sandy died of a brain tumor.
Who was Sandy?
One of our neighbors that had moved in later on. She'd passed away from a brain tumor, and she was my brother's age. And it just totally devastated the family. I just couldn't do that to my family. So I sat down with my dad and talked to him about it. He said, well, I've been there. And he told me about World War II. He told me how he had to send all those letters home to the family, the people that he met maybe once or twice. You know, when he took their orders when they signed into the unit, and when he paid them if they were still around to get paid. And then he sent them off to all corners of the Pacific to get blown to smithereens. You know, he'd send a platoon or a squad out to take care of a problem. If they were lucky, one guy would come back with a clipboard and some personal effects. If they weren't lucky, the personal effects and the clipboard would come back. There was one huge torpedo that they tried to defuse in Okinawa. No, it was Iwo Jima, that took out an entire platoon, including his executive officer, which was their platoon leader. That was what drove him to swim out into the Pacific, and then realized he had a wife and son at home that would really, really miss him if he didn't come back.
Of course.
And he wouldn't get any kind of death benefit or anything if he died that way. So he swam back. And he told me that story. And he said, look, you're planning a suicide, you're planning a murder. You don't want to leave any evidence of who did it, the fact that there was a murder, and if possible, you don't leave a body. This is the puzzle you have to solve before you can do this to yourself. He never figured out how to solve the puzzle, and neither did I. I'm 75.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you've never solved that puzzle.
I've been to that as an exigency. Basically on our show, we talk a lot about suicide, because that's a common epidemic in transgender community. 20% of the transgender population of this country will die by their own hand.
It's alarming. It's very alarming.
And there's no need for it.
No, there's no need for it.
In every other culture, transgender people are honored, respected, and considered important, because we see things from both sides.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's what makes me the author I am.
Well,
and the poet that I am.
And you say you're not prolific, but I think I might argue with you, because I've not published.
Well, I was a tech writer before I went into this.
Okay. So it was your skill set, and
I've got the skill set for it. I've been publishing since 10th grade.
Good for you.
I got into the Atlantic Monthly with a poem in 10th grade.
Can you recite it for us?
It's called "This is the Essence of House." I've had too many head injuries to remember it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, and then the ambush. So then you had the conversation with your father.
And that was several ambushes. In 3rd grade, I got cornered in the boys' room by 2 guys. One of them grabbed me by the elbows. The other one hit me in the midsection until I threw up and then passed out. Then they threw me headfirst into the urinal, left me laying there with my nose on a urinal cake.
Oh, geez.
I walked back into class 2 hours late, and I got yelled at. I stayed in for recess because I was afraid of just those 2 dudes. And I had to go to the bathroom. So I walked into the boys' room, which was right across the hall from the classroom, and they're waiting for me.
I'm just shocked, I guess, that...
Possible ruptured spleen, ruptured diaphragm, hiatal hernia.
Did your mom ever
Doctor said the cure's worse than the disease. So I've been living with that thing since 3rd grade. It makes me a little bit short of breath when I run. So I developed anaerobic skills.
There you go.
I was a world-class bicyclist in college.
Good for you.
Until I crashed. Lost a tire on US 422 drafting an 18-wheeler doing about 70. What happened is the sew-up tire came off the rim, wrapped around the front hub, and flipped me.
Oh, boy. Oh. Well, they say if you ride a bike, it's not a matter of when, but not a matter of if, but when.
Vaporized the bike.
Yes, yes. Oh, geez.
And my sponsor said, well, you're breaking too much equipment.
That's crazy.
Well, I was dominating the Johnstown Velodrome.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were.
I mean, the way I trained is I put a 100-pound barbell weight in the frame of the bike, strap it in, and then hit the hills of western Pennsylvania as fast as I could ride. And to make a little bit extra money, I go to Main Street of Indiana, PA, and take on anything under 100 cc's in a drag race with my 3-speed Schwinn.
Nice.
And a full-fendered 3-speed Schwinn Corvette. The only thing that was different is the front sprocket was just a tad larger than what one would find on a stock 3-speed Schwinn, which gave me a 82-inch top gear. So I could get up to 40 miles an hour in a block, which was faster than a Honda 50 or a Honda 90 could do. And I could get it almost instantaneously.
Well, sometimes when I'm riding my bike, I think it's faster to get someplace than it would be if I was driving.
Oh, yeah. Well, I stopped riding pretty much after I had to kick a mirror off a Mercedes because the guy was crowding me trying to make my left turn into my street. And that was the 4th time that had happened. And I said, with these lunatics, these rich lunatics, driving Mercedes, BMWs, and Audis, it's only a matter before my wife ends up planting me.
Oof, that's not fun. All right, so if we were just to pull something out of here, what lesson do we have from, I think schools are doing a better job as far as...
Well, let's see. Let me dig through here on the
I think schools are doing a better job of helping kids be safe and to be themselves and to allow this opportunity. But what else do we need to know? And you already mentioned
the last thing I write is a question for the 21st century.
Okay.
Here. You read it. question for the 21st century.
Why is it so hard for people to let go of preconceived notions as to how other people in their lives should be and embrace them as they are? That is just so true. Why must personal change come at so high a cost? That's just so true. And then you have immigration, a simple solution to immigration.
Just more checkpoints and paperwork. Give those people paperwork. We need them.
Right. No, I know. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And what is this?
That's C:\compost. That's a collection of short works.
Okay.
Basically, they came about because I needed a Christmas gift to give the family. So I dug into a file I call compost in my computer. Mm-hmm. There's a chapter describing compost in here. There's a guy named Fred Katz who's writing a second book, and he talks about a file named compost where it's something that didn't work out right. You stick it in compost for later. Mm.
I like that idea.
Well, it was my dad's idea. My dad had a compost file, so I have a compost file.
Nice.
It's probably 250 gigabytes because of video in it too. Mm. But broken projects and stuff like that, I'd stick into compost, and I'd take bits and pieces out. My novel's built totally out of compost.
So is your dad Fred Katz?
No, my dad is Roland Hikes. Fred Katz was basically an alter ego I made up for myself when I was getting frustrated. I had writer's block.
So I like this quote: "The anticipation of a thing is always the best part of it."
It is.
And the experience is never as bad as the
experience is never as good as it, because, I took up motorcycle racing, professional motorcycle racing, with no medical insurance, simply because I had to earn a living, because I was feeding 14 people that followed me from New York. Mm. I had an entourage that I felt responsible for, because they were the people that when I walked into my apartment, one of the Trump tenements in Lower East Side covered with blood, none of it was mine, they freaked. And they said, it's time to leave town. So we loaded up in my panel truck that I just bought that day to haul my motorcycle back and forth to the racetrack. And we headed west. We were going to head to Wesley Kerwin's mother's house in Santa Rosa was our destination. Mm. So there were 10 of us left when we hit Tulsa and got arrested. Mm. For suspicion of vagrancy. I'd had to sell the motorcycle for gas money. Oh, so I had the proceeds of the motorcycle sale.
Which was what, just a few $1,000s?
Well, I paid $275 for the motorcycle in the crate at the shop I was working at. I was one we were having trouble moving.
So that's not much money.
I sold it for $400.
And these are people that you were taking care of?
These are the people I was taking care of, because I felt responsible for them.
No, I get it.
I mean, I had Samantha, who was the star of Andy Warhol's Rooftop Rendezvous and quite a few of his silkscreens, who I found in my bed one night when I came home from work. Mm. And she was my buddy Preacher from the Pagans Motorcycle Club's old lady. Mm. But she knew that if she came to me, she'd be well taken care of. I had Spirit, who was Andy Warhol and Robert Mapplethorpe's acid connection. I had John from the STP family. He was the person that originally formulated the purple party pill, which you drop it into a punch bowl, it would get an entire party high.
Oh, jeez.
I had Gary Brewer, who was the bassist for the Stone Ponies. Mm-hmm. I had Wesley Kerwin, who was the head mechanic for Mike Halewood's Honda racing team. Mm-hmm. He had been fired because somebody put LSD in his coffee.
Well, those are scary times, and those were kind of...
And I had people from a street gang that I'm not at liberty to name because it's an obscenity. And I had, these were the people that traveled west with me. Mm-hmm. We had Spirit's old lady and two women and 8 men got arrested in Tulsa. And we spent 2 months in the Tulsa jail. We managed to make Santa Rosa in time to watch the moon landing. We left New York City May 22nd.
So why did you get arrested? Was it
Suspicion of vagrancy. And then, now I just gotten out of the Army. I have a history of being bullied. I was tired. I'd been on the road without bathing, with insufficient food and water, and listening to a truck that was on the verge of total failure every mile of the way. And I'd gone clear across the country to Tulsa, Oklahoma. This deputy sheriff has the audacity to grab me by the hair of the head, pull me up against the cell bar, through the cell bar, and said, "Boy, I'm going to cut your hair." I grabbed him over my shoulder by the wrist, said, "Like hell you are," and pulled. Well, he did not go. So I pulled back and pulled again until he let go. We got put in the hole. Hadn't even been arraigned yet. They put us in the hole because nobody would rat out the other. And you know, my last assignment for the U.S. Army in Germany was teaching the military police how to hold on to their service weapons, because somebody had gotten shot by his own weapon by a drunk. And I was the best hand-to-hand combat instructor they could find, because by 5th grade I'd totally memorized the hand-to-hand combat manual for the American soldier, and then added to it. I hospitalized my hand-to-hand combat instructor in basic, because he didn't like me. He was going to get rough with. He didn't like my attitude. I was drafted as an anti-war activist over a flunked physical. I told them I was bi. I told them I had a heart condition. I told them I had a bad knee. All of these things would preclude my military service.
Right.
They drafted me anyway.
What war was this?
Vietnam.
Vietnam War, that's what I thought.
I was drafted for Vietnam. Well, anyway, I ended up organizing all the draftee OCS guys to drop out on the same day. And by the time we dropped out, I had a piece of legislation to send to Congress. It's called the Volunteer Military Act. They cut out one important part of it. Anybody who shows up will be taken, and something found for them to do. Unfortunately, Congress didn't have the foresight to do that. Now we got a manpower shortage. Gotta love it.
I know. Well, you've taken my breath away, and I'm almost without words, which very rarely ever happens, but it's been an honor and a privilege to get to know you. I'm sorry for the atrocities and the misunderstandings and the struggle.
Well, it's part of doing business in America. I look at it as the cost of doing business in America.
Well, thank you for being my guest. Thank you.
I had a good time.
Thank you.
Anyway, I have this reality show. It's called That Reality Show. It's available on YouTube. Look up Helga Man on YouTube. There's a link to it on Facebook. It says That Reality Show. That you subscribe to, that show will show up in your feed every day. I'm working with a lady named Lisa Boswell, who's also a T-girl. She comes from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She used to be a shock jock on, she was Boz from the Breeze Radio.